Thanks for patience. Just to check logistically and technically, is there anyone here still who has youth written on the name tag? Or basically who would identify himself or herself as a young person from Montenegro? No, okay, then we are okay. Thank you. No. You are staying. Okay, so without further ado then, I will ask Eva to join me here and present us Western Balkan window and especially capacity building component. She will be speaking, she will have a presentation of around 20 minutes, and then we will have a round of questions and discussion and use her presence here, because just after this session she will run to the airport, and since Montenegro and Podgorica is very small, we hope she will manage to get her plane. But seriously, since she will not be here for the next day and a half, this is the last opportunity to ask, comment, or make some remarks to whatever you want to do with Eva and Central European Agency. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just had a smaller discussion with my colleague from Albania. So I would like to have a short introduction in order to tell you that those opportunities are really, really useful. So you can really do something for the young people that are here, because I myself are a product of EBS. So I've done an EBS in '99, so it's a very long time. And you can see that, well, it helped me to achieve something in my life. And my colleague from Albania, it's the same, so it's real, let's say. Okay, so the youth program and all the funding opportunities are really, really useful. I'm talking today to you about the capacity building in the field of youth. This is an action which is financed under Key Action 2 under the Erasmus Plus program, which is in the program guide. And we have two opportunities, so there is a possibility for Western Balkan, countries from the Western Balkans to apply directly, but I will come to the details later. So the capacity building in the field of youth is to promote the cooperation and mobility activities that have a positive impact on the cooperation and exchanges in the field of youth between the different regions of the world, among the Western Balkan region, the qualitative development of youth work, policies and system, and especially also the recognition of youth work, non-formal learning and volunteering, especially in the partner countries, because in Europe, in the program countries, there is now the tradition with youth pass and so on for the recognition, but in partner countries, this is still to go, this is still a process in development, that youth work is recognized for young people in order to find employment afterwards. The activities should promote the strategic cooperation between the organizations, between youth organizations and public authorities. So this is why I'm very happy to saw that there were many people from the ministries and from the public authorities, because this is very, very important to involve them also in the youth project. So don't be shy to contact the local institutions, the governments and so on, in order to involve them, to keep them in touch for the projects. Organizations also in the field of education and training. And which is new, which my colleague after mentioned, it's now much easier also to involve organizations in the business and labor market, so for example private enterprises in the projects. And of course, the main aim is to increase the capacities of all those organizations involved. So all organizations should benefit from it to increase the capacities in the field of youth, which is youth organizations, councils, youth platforms, and so on. In practice, what should the project do? It should launch, test, implement youth work practices, such as tools and methods for the socio-professional development of youth workers and trainers. Use, of course, the non-formal learning methods. And ideally also new forms of youth work, which is, for example, open and flexible learning, the virtual mobility, which is becoming very important, open educational resources, and the better exploitation of ICT potential. So use the new technologies in the field of youth as well. concretely what I was saying is there are two types of capacity building. You have at one strength the program countries and the partner countries from region 5 to 13, which I mentioned in the program guide. Those are the regions, the ACP countries, Asia, Latin America, and so on. Those projects are submitted by program countries, so most of you will not be concerned, except if there is Macedonia or Croatia. Those are the projects in the first strength. And in the second strength, we have the program countries and partner countries from region 1, which is your region, Western Balkan countries. And those projects are submitted by you, by the Western Balkan applicants directly. So the Western Balkan Youth Window project, so we call it the Youth Window, they are submitted by the organizations from the Western Balkans and aim at increasing the capacity of organizations through the implementation of mobility activities. Mobility activities are the activities that have already been existing before in the Youth in Action program. So it's something you know, but it should be used to increase your capacities. So it's not anymore a simple small youth exchange one shot, but it should be used to increase the capacities of the organizations. So the mobility activities are youth exchanges, European voluntary service, or mobility of youth workers. You have for those activities specific eligibility criteria which are mentioned in the program guide, such as the minimum number of participants for youth exchanges and so on. Then you have the possibility to use complementary capacity building activities, what we call them. Those are really the activities that encourage the policy dialogue, cooperation, networking, and exchange of practices in the field of youth. You can do so by using, for example, conferences, workshops, meetings, large-scale youth events, and information awareness campaigns. Very important, what is very nice to see also in projects, is that you have concrete products. For example, you develop a tool, or youth work methods, you have materials, training modules, or even books, really concrete manuals, books, and so on. So this is very, very nice to see this, and all this is also eligible to be financed. It's not something I tell you like this, you have to get financing for this. For the eligibility, the applicant needs to be a non-profit organization, association, NGO, I mean, there are different names in different countries, or national youth councils, or public bodies, which means it can be a local municipality or even government, so it's a public body. You have to be legally registered for at least 1 year, so it's not a very long time, but you have to exist for your 1 year legally in your country, so you have to provide a proof of registration with your application so that we can verify that you exist for at least 1 year. And you have to be established in one of the Western Balkan countries. For the partners, it's much larger, and the partners can be any public or private organization established in a program country or a Western Balkan country. And now we come to a very important point. The partnership must be minimum 3 participating organizations from 3 different countries, and minimum 1 program country. So it's not possible that you make a project only with the Western Balkan region. You have to find one program country. What we find very often is that in the Western Balkan Youth Window that you have projects among yourselves involving, for example, Croatia, Macedonia, Slovenia, and so on. Well, you can also involve the other program countries, which are a bit higher north, let's say. But well, at least you have to involve 1 program country in your project. The duration is very nice actually, because you can have projects from 9 months up to 2 years. So it's really something you can go for a higher grant if you want and make activities for a duration of 2 years. So it's not anymore a small kind of one-shot activity, as I said, but you can plan, for example, 5 youth exchanges in a period of 2 years, which are all complementary, which are really building your capacities. So it's up to 2 years. The condition for you to apply is that you have at least 1 mobility activity. So So at least one youth exchange or one mobility of youth workers or one EDS activity. So this is the condition for you to apply. And you can only present one project per deadline by the same applicant. So this is in order to guarantee an equal treatment to all organizations, that you have to present only one project. But well, this project can be a very big project with many, many activities inside. So it does not say that you have to present only one activity. You can really have one big project with lots of activities inside. But the aim is to have one project. For the award criteria, our proposals, the proposals you sent to us will be evaluated by external experts. So we have a database for this with about 400 names of experts that we can use. We evaluate their CVs in order to see if they are relevant in order to evaluate the proposals. We look at the CV, so they have to have some experience in the youth field. Additional, they can have experience also in the field of education or a complementary field, but the youth field is very important, so that they have some experience and knowledge of the field directly. And the applications will be seen by at least 2 experts. This is in order to guarantee that there is some equal treatment and objectivity, let's say, so that the 2 experts will see the application and score independently. So they have they independently look at the application, and in the consolidation phase they will contact each other and to see, okay, if they had the same approach, and they will find a common score. But it's really important for us that they look at the applications first of all independently in order to be not influenced by anything, so that they have their own opinion about the project, and then afterwards they have to discuss with the other experts in order to see if they are right, if they had the same approach. So they look at 4 different criteria. In the program guide you have more details on those criteria, so it's very important to base yourself on this. The relevance of the project, quality of the project design and implementation, quality of the project team and the cooperation arrangement, and of course impact and dissemination. For more details, please go to the program guide and really look at those criteria in detail if you want to apply and if you want to construct your proposal. So some additional hints in order to make your project good. It's the innovative character. So the call is very, very competitive. So there are many, many applications. I can tell you for second round, which was the 2nd of September, we had 176 applications from the Western Balkan countries, which is a lot. So we will not be able to finance all of them. So there will be a disappointed organizations. I'm really sorry about that, but we will have next deadlines. So and you should get a letter which includes constructive feedback, where you can see, okay, those are the points where you should work on in order to present a new proposal. So don't give up. If you're already understood the thing, it may happen that, well, next time you will be selected if you're rejected now. What is very important is also to have a coherence of the activities throughout the project. So the whole project, if for example you have a project which lasts 2 years, that you find some theme that would be the leading theme throughout the 2 years, and that all the activities are building up on this theme. For example, which is a theme which would be very, how do you say, at the moment would be the refugee crisis. So if you have, for example, the idea, okay, I would like to make a project on the refugee crisis, that it's really something that goes throughout all activities, that all activities are tackling this. It can be on various fields. For example, one point, okay, you target the refugees themselves. At one point, you tackle intercultural dialogue in order to work a bit with the local communities and so on. So it's really to have one. In French, you say fil conducteur. I don't know in English, but that you have one theme that goes through the whole project, so that it's really consistent with your own objectives. Ideally, you have local and an international impact. This is new actually in the capacity building, because now you have the possibility also to do some local activities, which is very important, we think, so that you have some local activities in all the countries that are participating, and afterwards you meet, you have international activities in order to build your capacities. I'm repeating it again, but this is very important, so that you have both dimensions. And you have a visibility and dissemination strategy. So it's not only the project that, okay, you're implementing your project, but it's also seen by the outside, that it can be used for dissemination purposes, also, for example, by us, if you see that you have a nice project, that we can use this and say, okay, this is a great project, you have disseminated, we would like to disseminate it even further, so that you have a clear strategy in order to make it visible what you're doing and to disseminate it. And as I said before, it's also good to have concrete results, that you know when you start your project, where do you want to go to, what would you like to achieve, that you have results, probably in line with products, that you have, okay, this is my results, I want to make a manual for youth workers on how to handle refugees. I'm just inventing something, what's coming into my head. What is important to know is that the Western Balkan projects compete only with Western Balkan projects. So you're not in competition with the first strength of the program, which is for the program countries, with the call it ACPALA, with the ACP countries and so on. So it's really you're competing on your own. And well, regarding the funding, as Arthur mentioned, so we have funding until the end of the program, for the moment, looks like this. For 2016, there are 3 million euros, like in 2015, so it means that there are more or less 1,500,000 per deadline. This is not something that is funded directly by Erasmus+, but it's additional EU funds, so it's the pre-accession assistance, which is allocated to the program, to us, in order to increase the cooperation with the Western Balkans. So it's a very nice tool, and it's also very important to show that you're there, that you apply, in order to keep this funding also running, because it's something which is additional, so it's very important. For the funding rules, so you know that the maximum grant is 150,000 euros. There is no minimum grant. So you can even go for a very small project. If you don't feel very confident to make a big project, you can go for a small project because there is no minimum grant. However, it's very important to use the right budget categories. This is something we have seen when analyzing the applications, that there is sometimes some confusion. What goes into mobility activities, what is capacity building activities. So all the mobility activities are financed through flat rates, and everything that is linked for these mobility activities has to be financed by the flat rate. Which means, for example, if for your youth exchange you need a trainer, it should be financed through the organizational support, through the flat rate of this youth exchange. If you have additional activities, for example, the capacity building activities, this is really to complement, but not necessarily the mobility activities, but the whole project. So it must be in line with the whole project. So if you have, for example, a booklet that you would like to publish, it can be in line also with the youth exchanges, but it should be really something for the whole project. So this can be financed through the capacity building activities, which is based on real cost estimations. So real cost estimations means that you have to think how much it would cost, you make the estimation, and in the final report you have to provide an invoice. I mean, you have to have a valid invoice, and we will finance up to 80% of the co-funding. This afterwards depends on the grant agreement that you have, what will be the funding rate. But it's really important that you know, okay, it's based on real costs, so it's not a flat rate. What is new for the capacity building activities this year, that for the travel costs, it will be also by flat rates. Because this year in 2015, it was still with the real costs, which was a bit confusing for many applicants, because at one point, if you have travel costs, you have to declare it on real costs. On the other hand, it's flat rate. So this has been harmonized, so you have flat rates for the travel costs. the application process. So first of all, you have to register in the participant portal your organization and all the partner organizations. So you will get a PIC number, and with this PIC number you will be able to create your application form. And you have to go to the website to download the e-form. For next year it's not yet available, and I'm sorry to announce that it will not be available apparently until the end of December. So which leaves a short time to really download the e-form, but all the annexes, to reassure you, all the annexes where you actually have to describe all the project and so on, and everything will be published beginning of December to allow you really to prepare everything. So it's just the e-form application. You will get a PDF version of the e-form in order to see what's in there. But the e-form itself is not, I mean, it's more the annexes that you will have to prepare. This is much more work than the e-form itself. Once you have downloaded then the e-form, you have to attach the annexes, so do not forget to attach the annexes. And then submit. Next deadline is 2nd of February 2016, so it has been pushed a little bit in advance compared to 2015. If you don't manage to do it by 2nd of February, there is still a second deadline. I did not put it, but it's in July. It's 1st of July 2016. So this is it from my side. I don't know if you have any questions. I guess so. So I will give the microphone to somebody.
Yeah. And Eva, thank you. First of all, maybe you can join me here so that we can pick the questions. We have already some hands up and one volunteer to help us with the microphone. So please also, because we are still picking up on names, say the name and then a question. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jana. I'm from Serbian organization Leader. I have actually a few questions, if that's okay. Okay, so when we had this online presentation, there was something that I picked up on and I didn't ask there. It was explanation about projects to 60,000 and after 60,000 euros. And it was many times mentioned real cost. So I'm not sure, is this 60,000 count just for real cost, or it's also including mobility activity? And also, if you can elaborate a little bit about the difference in assessing applications up to 60,000 and after, and also later in reporting and different things. Also, I just wanted, you mentioned that you put flat rates for travel costs, and I was wondering, is it reporting also going to be the same, so that the entire sum it's actually going to be different for like for mobility activity? That is it going to be the same reporting like for mobility activity for travel costs? And I think this is it for now.
Good. Okay. No. Okay. Okay, very good question. Thank you. I forgot to tell you about the 60,000 threshold. Actually, there's two different scenarios. It's at application stage and at final report stage. At application stage, all applicants asking for more than 60,000 euros, mobility activities and capacity building activities, so it's total grant request. If it's more than 60,000 euros, the organization has to submit in the participant portal the annual accounts for the last 2 years. This is in order to allow us to analyze the financial capacity of your organization, to see how you're able to manage, how you managed money during the last 2 years, and if we can trust you to manage it in an adequate manner. Don't worry, even if the financial capacity is weak, we will still pre-finance you. The pre-financing will be a little bit different. So for organizations where the financial capacity is perfect and good, they will receive 80% of the grant as a pre-financing. Organizations which have weak financial capacity, or which are not able, for example, to submit us the last 2 years of annual accounts, because they do not exist for such a long time, or for something they are not able to, they will be pre-financed at 40%. So they will receive a pre-financing of 40%. They will have to submit the progress report, which is actually, don't be scared about that as well, because it's actually a very light version. So you have just tell us, okay, which are the activities that you have implemented so far. It's not that huge as a final report, so it's really the progress report in order to inform us what did you do, how much money did you spend, and so on. And then we will launch a second pre-financing of 40%. And in the end, you will get, as all other organizations, the remaining balance or the launching of a recovery order if you did not use all the money when submitting the final report. So this is the first scenario at the application stage for all grants that are higher than 60,000. The second scenario is at final report. If you had a grant based on real costs more than 60,000 euros. So this is right that in this case the mobility activities are not counted because they are based on flat rates. So all real costs, if the grant of the real cost is more than 60,000 euros, you will have to provide an audit certificate. The audit certificate has to be established by an independent auditor, and you have all the guidelines with the documents of the final report how this should look like. The costs for this audit report, because we know that this is quite expensive, are eligible costs. So you can include them in your budget when you make your grant request. You can include those costs in your budget in order to be covered. So 80% of those costs will be covered as well through the grant. I hope this answered your question. And for the flat rates for the travel costs, it will be exactly the same procedure as for the mobility activities. So boarding passes, travel tickets, list of attendance, and so on to see if you were really there and if you really traveled in order to get the travel costs flat rates.
Or full amount?
No, full amount, flat rate. Full amount of the... It's the same flat rates actually as the mobility for youth workers, and it's the full amount. So it's flat rates, we're just checking if you traveled, and we do not check how much did the ticket costs in reality, because it's already based on calculations where we know that it's more or less the price. So this is to simplify the procedures.
So
So we need to facilitate this a little bit. Yeah, we need to facilitate this a little bit. And before Surgeon, we were having Ira here, so I need to see all the hands. Sorry for this. So Ira, Surgeon, then I see this line, and then you. Okay. So we have quite a few questions, and maybe one by one we are taking them on.
Yeah, I think it's easier.
Okay.
So for me to remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Ira from Albania, from the contact point in Tirana. I had a few questions. You already replied a few of them, so I'll first would like to ask, previously in the Youth in Action program, there were the possibility for operational grants for the Western Balkans. They were even existing before 2007 with the old youth program, which is and was actually a very good possibility also for networks and for using this. Is there any possibility to re-get these operational grants back into the Erasmus Plus in the near future?
I'm not aware of anything that will be delegated to us in this sense. I don't know if Arthur has more information, because this is always something which is handled by DG NIR, because they are responsible for the funds and they actually give us the money to handle it. But for the moment, I'm not aware of something. But just to add something, or to complement on operational expenses, I forgot to tell you, in the capacity building projects, you are allowed to ask for 7% for indirect costs. So indirect costs, which is operational costs actually to the organization, so you can ask for 7% of the budget for of the real cost budget for indirect costs. This money can be used also for permanent staff costs, the 7%. Please be careful that staff costs as such are not eligible under the direct costs for the capacity building activities. So it's not possible to put the salary of the project manager in the budget. So it should be financed through the 7% indirect costs if you would like to use it for staff costs.
My next question would be related to the travel calculated distance and the different rates that are from mobility of youth workers, youth exchanges, and EBS. We talk about a program which we heard also during the day, a lot of inclusion, pure opportunity target groups and everything. While, to my understanding, like lower rates in the budget of travel for youth exchanges and a higher rate for mobility of youth workers. Youth exchanges, young people without a job, mostly students, they need more financial support. Youth workers work, lots of them, they have more financial capacity. Why this change and how the Commission explain this? Because to me, personally, sorry to put it like on, maybe aggravate it a bit, but this is exclusion, not inclusion to my concern. Like an 18 years old young person who has a certain amount of the budget, and the other one who's a youth worker has much more, then it kind of excludes a bit. Or it's also one remark we got from associations, it makes the associations work only with the neighboring countries, really nearby, because they have to calculate this distance. I don't know if this is a concern for other contact points and beneficiaries, but this is...
It's a very difficult question for me to answer, because the program guide is actually not in my hands, so I'm looking at Arto. And I remember we already had this discussion with the Commission, and the arguing was that the flat rates are established on the previous Youth in Action program, where actually the travel costs were not yet flat rates, but it was financed up to 70% and 90% for EVS. So this is why there are differences in the travel costs. But we already had this discussion with the Commission. Maybe Arthur, you want to add something, or?
At this point, I don't have additional information, but I will discuss it. I will discuss it with colleagues at the Commission in this case.
Okay. Sergio.
Thank you. Also, thank you for coming and explaining the differences for this year, for for next year. I have a couple of questions. The first one: how can we get this €3 million up? And because we have a lot of interest in Balkans, and every year we have more and more projects and interest, is there a mechanism in EU how that we can lobby or advocate to it? Second is a deadline of 2nd of February. It's not a question. It's actually, in our opinion and in our practice in Youth in Action program, it was the most difficult deadline because of all the holidays. And for the people who are Orthodox, January is a month of rest. So it's really difficult the first part of January is a month of rest, so it's really difficult to manage and to have proposals developed by the 2nd of February. And the third is question about the travel flat rates and what kind of flat rates are used for activities that are not also found in mobility activities. For example, somebody goes for a conference, which is a capacity building activity, and there is no such practice in mobility activities. What do we calculate? If it is a young person, we calculate youth exchange. If it is youth worker, do we calculate what are the rates? Will these rates be appeared like a new one for conferences, different events, or we will use the flat rate logic by total?
Okay, I'm answering the second question first. In the program guide, actually, you have already the rates published. So for all capacity building activities, it's the same rates. It's the rates that are based on the mobility activities for youth workers. So you use those rates, and also in the budget sheet, it will appear automatically when you click on capacity building activity travel cost. It will calculate automatically the travel, the rates that are linked, that will be linked to this. Regarding the deadlines, yes, we know that 2nd of February is quite tight after the Christmas holidays and so on. It's actually the July deadline, because the deadline was first in September, and as I explained to my colleague from Albania, it is very difficult in administrative terms to conclude everything by the end of the year, which in the past obliged us to have for the first round to use a bit more of the money than in the second round, which is not necessarily a fair treatment, because in the first round we always have a little bit less applications than in the second round. So this is why we had to do something in order to push the second deadline a bit earlier, in order to allow us to really conclude everything by the end of the year, which means the grant agreements, because you don't have grant decisions but grant agreements. So we send it, you have to send it back, and so on. So it takes more time. Peak validations take some time. So this was actually the reason to put it in July, because, well, a deadline in August is not very good either, because it's in the middle of the summer. And keeping April and July would not have been a solution either, because it's too tight. So we had to push the first deadline also for February. But I'm very confident once it's running like this, it will be automatically that people know, okay, we have February, we have July, that they can really prepare their applications in advance and to do it like this. And it's for administrative terms for all organizations involved. It's better like this, because like this we can distribute the funds more equally on the two deadlines.
3 million euros.
How to improve? Yeah, how to get more money. So for the moment it's 3 million, and well, as Arthur also mentioned, we always have to fight to get money. So we're a bit in the same position as you. We are fighting for you to get more money. I think what is the most important thing to do is to show that you're there, that you're present, that you do projects, to do a dissemination, valorization, visibility of the projects, so that we have something in the hands to show, hey, look, we have here 20,000 young people who participated here and they have really nice results, in order to really have something concrete to show, okay, maybe in the future it would be good to think to have more money and so on. So for the moment, I mean, we're in the same position to fight always for the money, and money is getting, I mean, it's getting more and more rare with the crisis and with other things where money is reallocated to other parts and so on. So the youth sector is unfortunately not always the priority. But well, show that you're there, and to maintain at least this funding, and to even get higher in the future if you can show something very concrete. Maybe Arthur wants to say something.
Just wait for the phone.
I think it's important to have good projects. It's obvious, and also as Eva said, a second element is the number of applications. We have a very high number of applications from Western Balkan countries, which shows the interest, which is for us, which may not be good news for the ones who are rejected, but which for us is a very good argument to say to our counterparts at the Commission, look at how many interest there is in the Western Balkan countries for projects. And the third element is to bring to bring the outcome of the projects to the attention of policymakers, and to come from a project level to the political level, which means I take the Eastern Partnership countries as an example. We have the Eastern Partnership Youth Window, there were Eastern Partnership Youth Forums, like today. They came up with recommendations. The recommendations were brought to the attention of Eastern Partnership Summit. The Eastern Partnership Summit makes a reference to Erasmus Plus program, etc. So to find ways, together with policymakers in your countries, that how shall I say? Yeah, that you establish a bridge between the project level and the policy level. That if there are future summits, that Western Balkan Youth Window is mentioned, which was the case in the last summit. We from our side see that we bring in the Western Balkan Youth Window in all policy documents which we see and we have in front of us. And maybe it's not a possibility for all of you, but maybe some of you have a possibility. And also, if you do recommendations now at the end of this event, if you have good recommendations, this is very much a paper which we could present to our colleagues, to policymakers.
Thank you. Trecci then.
Hello, my name is Eren Benushi. I come from the Agency for Support of Civil Society in Albania. We're a public institution, independent, and we also act as a donor for the civil society organizations. As you mentioned before, we have many applications that we receive each year when we do the calls, and we manage to support only a small part of them because of other donors are not so active anymore in our country. Part of our strategy is to be part of the EU programs, and at Erasmus Plus we are also planning to be an applicant next year. One question is, can we as a public institution be a lead applicant?
Yes.
Are we eligible? And what would you suggest, what is your experience with public institutions in the past? Because for us it's a new thing. How do you see their positions, and what advice would you give to us on the partnership with other organizations and in other countries in the Western Balkans?
Very happy to hear that. Sorry. I'm very happy to hear that. Because, well, as I mentioned, the public authorities, it's very important for us to have public authorities also involved in the program, because it shows a certain credibility, and also if, you know, in the future, if we would like to have more funding and so on, we could say, okay, the public authorities, they're also in the program, they participate. So yes, you can be a lead applicant, so it's public authorities are eligible also to be a lead applicant. For the partnership, actually it's up to you to define how you would like to do it. We sometimes have projects, not yet so much in the Western Balkan regions, but other projects where it's like municipalities who are making projects on their own with many municipalities, and they create a project. We have projects which are mixed, where we have public authorities combined with schools, universities, and the NGOs that are on the field, in order to have a very large target group, which is university students, young people from the NGOs and so on, involved also in the youth clubs of the municipalities. So it's very up to you how you would see your project, what you would like to achieve. I think it's very important also, if you're a public authority, to really involve also the local communities, and maybe in the other countries to find project partners which are also public authorities. So that would be the ideal situation, that you find project partners that are also public authorities, next to other organizations, of course, but that you have some kind of common partnership in every country. And you can have more partners from one country if you wish. So the minimum is 3 participating countries, but you can have 4 partners, for example, per country participating, which is very flexible and which would be very good also to implement something at local level, to put everything together, to have an international level afterwards. So.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lavdrim from Youth in Free Initiative organization from Albania. I think it's a good thing is the new features that you have explained to us about the costs and what was going to be the flat rates for the capacity building, because on the rejection letter that we got for the last project, there was something like that. So we mixed a few budget lines. Well, it happens. So hopefully next time when we apply, we know what we're doing. The other thing is regarding travel again. Just in August, we had to reject an event for young people in Finland because the travel costs were at least 120 euros more than the flat rate supply. And when we're talking about young people, you know, unemployed students or you know, vulnerable groups, it's quite difficult for them to cover these costs. So maybe we need to recommend something of that. Yes. Because, you know, going to Finland by whatever means is going to be more than what's the flat rate is going to be. And and my question is the Berlin process going to affect your program or the program here? Do you have any idea of that?
Arthur, is the Berlin process to affect our program?
I think it's difficult to say it in concrete terms, but in general terms certainly, because it gives much more visibility to the enlargement process, which is a very good, how shall I say, starting position to get the funds also in the future, and maybe at a certain moment to increase funds. Also to be realistic from my personal point of view, from what I know today, doesn't look probable that we get more funds next year. I don't know, for the midterm future it's difficult to say. But I mean, also just the fact that the Western Balkans use window was prolonged is not something which can be taken for granted. So I think that's already a good sign, and with the political visibility, which is for the Western Balkans, which is reinforced through the Berlin process, I think that's a good starting basis also as far as funds are concerned.
I would. Thank you. I would just like to add something regarding the rejection letters. So if you have, for your next applications, you have technical questions regarding, for example, the budget, you don't know exactly, okay, where should I put those costs, do not hesitate to send us a message, because we have a help desk. It cannot go into details regarding the content of your application, like, okay, is it good to have a project on racism? This is something we cannot tell you. This is really the content. But if it's technical questions regarding, okay, how to use the budget, how to structure the budget, or how to use the other annexes and so on, how to upload my documents in the participant portal, all those questions we can answer. So you just send an email, and we have a help desk, and we will answer you as quick as possible, depending on the number of questions, but you will get an answer to those questions.
Tim, thank you.
Hi, my name is Valjan. I'm from Kosovo, from organization Peer Educators Network, which is implementing of Innovations Lab Kosovo, which are doing exactly the same thing as described on this program. We wanted always to apply, but it was not clear for us the co-funding part. And now you were mentioning a part of co-funding from the organization, but still I didn't get exactly. And the second question is about the process of monitoring. How do you monitor the project, for example, in Western Balkan from whatever year of it is?
Okay, to apply for the co-funding, actually you are free to find the co-funding. You do not have to have co-funding before applying. So you can apply, and once you have the project, you have to find, for the real cost activities, you will have to find some co-funding. So it cannot be contributions in kind, which means there has to be some cash flow somewhere. But it can be co-funding from authorities, public authorities, or it can be from your organizations. It can be various sources of co-funding. So it's and it's 20%. So minimum 20%, and really only for the real cost activities. If you have only flat rate activities, you're free to handle the project's money as you want. For example, if you have to find some more co-funding for the travel costs, because the travel to Finland is not sufficient, you will get the global package of the travel costs. If you have another activity, for example, in not so far, and where you have some spare money for the travel costs, you could use the spare money to complement the other travel costs, because you will get the global package of the travel costs. So this is something you can be quite flexible regarding the flat rate activities. And yes, for the co-funding, I mean, we in the end, when you submit the final report, we will not control which kind of co-funding you got. You tell us, okay, I had this kind of co-funding, but if it comes from the government or if it's from the own resources of your organization that you inject into the project, this is something we will not go into detail. And monitoring, yes. Monitoring, so we try to organize monitoring visits to see some of the projects that we finance. Of course, we cannot finance all, visit all of them. So it's monitoring also on the desk, which means that you send us, warmly invited to send us emails to say us, okay, we had this activity, it went very well, so you can see that the project is advancing very well. And we make the monitoring visits also on the spot to meet the organizations, as for example we did yesterday with two organizations actually from Montenegro who got the grant, to meet them to discuss, okay, how do they implement the project and so on. So this is the monitoring procedure.
Okay. Ako nije prošlo, to?
So my dear colleagues already asked everything I wanted to ask. So I will leave my comments for the recommendation session. Basically it's about inclusion issue. And yes, I have a small question, okay. Are you going to calculate these flat rates for travel costs according to rates of youth exchanges or mobility of youth workers?
For the
Capacity building activities.
mobility of youth workers.
Okay. Because for example, Montenegro is a small country, but usually when we calculate it, the amount is zero. So we actually don't receive any money for travel costs for local capacity building activities. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Anna Petaski. I come from People's Parliament from Serbia. Well, I have also a question regarding the travel costs. When you were talking about which countries we like to work with, the distance calculator and travel cost flat rate strongly affects our decisions to cooperate from organizations from some countries, because travel costs are not nearly enough to involve youngsters from some countries, and we don't like to make our programs elite, so youngsters who can afford to travel and come and participate can pay their tickets. So when you were talking about flexibility regarding the travel costs, would it be possible, because in certain events from youngsters from certain countries, travel costs rate is higher than necessary for their trip? Would we be able to relocate some of the funds remaining and co-finance travel for some participants who are further distance and their tickets are much more expensive?
Yes, because you will get the package for the travel costs. So in the end, what we control, we don't look at the ticket, how much was your ticket for the travel cost. We will look at the boarding passes, if you really traveled, if the person was really on the spot, and this is how we verify. So if you have some spare money for one activity, and for the other activity you have not enough, you're flexible to move this money. The only thing is you're not allowed to make a profit, so you cannot calculate and you make, okay, all my activities I will do it in here, because then I have 500 euros left. So this is something which is not allowed. But if you reallocate it for the travel costs that are left, you will get the package, even if it's not directly linked to this participant, but if it stays within the project and you use it in the correct way, this is possible because you get the package of the whole travel costs. Don't forget boarding passes and those kind of things for the verification.
Okay, hi.
Hello.
Igor from Split, Scout Poseidon. Okay, several questions. I will first ask them if you can apply, answer then we can move, because I have 4 or 5 questions. First, this key action to strategic partner leadership, can we apply to National Agency of Croatia?
No.
No, so the Western window is just directly to the Bristol.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can apply, but for the cooperation with Africa, Asia, Latin America. So this is, you can apply, but not for the Western Balkan window.
Okay, thank you. You said we can apply just one project, so mean one project to Bristol. We can apply, because the same deadline we have the key action 1 and key action 2 in Croatia.
One project to Brussels for this particular key action 2, capacity building in the field of youth. One per deadline.
Thank you. And now we speak about the travel cost and everything. In our case, a lot of organizations not coming with the plane because of travel cost. They use the minibus they have, or they earn, or they rent, or something like that. So this is also acceptable. Okay.
Yes, this is also acceptable. However, you have to be careful for the reporting because you won't have boarding passes. So you have to have some proof that, well, it was a minibus, that you started at this point of the... So what we usually advise is that you use, for example, a gas invoice, that we see, okay, at this point there was put gas inside the car, and that you go, and you have really to document that, well, who are the participants who went with that, with declarations on honor and so on, to really prove that they traveled like this, and that they participated also in the event. So it's not. We have a declaration. We have the participation list what they must sign, and also we have youth pass. So we have several levels how to approve that they are coming. Okay, the next question connects to this also travel cost. In key action 1 in Croatia, I don't know, this is the same politics or national agency, you can allocate the money from the mobility flat rate to travel cost. Yes and no. I mean, in the end, I just told you how will be the reporting. So in the reporting, if you get the organizational support, which is also per participant per day, so in the end, we will not check if the €100 you used it for the organizational support or for the travel cost. It's the packages that you receive. You have to report that everything went on, and in the end, this is the aim of flat rates, that we don't lose you and us too much time in order for the invoices and so on to go one by one. So the important thing is to respect the reporting obligations. If there is €100 left and you would like to use it for the travel cost, you can.
Also, we have policies in our organization. We have the fair travel cost. So if you have some country can spend the money, spare the money, and then we can pay a little bit more to some organization who didn't. Okay, super. The next question is connecting to the key action 2, and we have inside also. We can allocate 7% money for the payment and so on, because in the moment we have one strategical partner leadership with the 10 countries around Europe, and I have the budget in and everything, and inside also they have some things like the how they cost a day per work in several countries, also the calculator, and I myself it's very sad when you look in the work per day in Croatia costs €55. In the Belgium, they cost €250. So we must a lot of work, because every job comes to us because we are so cheap. This is also not so fair. I understand why they happen, because all the economical stuff and how the living cost in Belgium or England. So just maybe in the future to think a little about this is not so fair. This is not a question, this is just
a recommendation. But this is also something I wanted to say. You have the session on the recommendations, so I really would invite you also, as Arto said, to put all the recommendations together, because it's not something that I can decide or Arto can decide now. It's something that goes through a whole process, which is very long, to take on recommendations, and it's also to show that you're active, that you understand, that you see that you're involved. That's very important.
Thank you. Don't be afraid. I write everything.
Okay, perfect. And send it to him, not to me.
To Arto. To him.
Yeah.
I write in the end of the application form when you have mobility tool. They ask you, do you have something to add? And
exactly.
you write it all the time.
I see.
Organizing support, providing support for potential applicants and organizations that are implementing projects. Asking you from your perspective, who see the applications and who takes a look at the implementation, where do you
projects that are already taking place. Yeah, where would you recommend more support in terms of capacity building from our side, or promotion? Because maybe you're getting from certain target groups not enough application. You'd like to see more.
In general, I would say that we were quite happy with both selections for the Western Balkan Youth Window, because we saw that the organizations start to understand how it works with capacity building. So contrary what we thought in the beginning, that we will have lots of applications only with mobility activities, we had quite a few who also focused on capacity building activities, which is very nice. And this is also something I would say, I think it's thanks to the contact points who tried to transfer the information. And I think this is something still where we can work on, that this offers new opportunities. We're not anymore in this scenario where we have like the one-shot projects. So it's really something to show that you're there as a region, as our youth sector in the whole region, to create something more than that. And for this, I think the capacity building activities really to show that there's something more. It's very important, and this is also something I think the contact points can continue to transfer to the organizations, to use this kind of opportunity. Secondly, linked to this, it's very complicated with the budget, because we know that this is real cost budget, flat rate budgets. I mean, it shows that more than half of the questions are linked to the budget. This is something we know that it's complicated. Also for us, it's complicated. When we discovered the program guide, it was very like, oh God, how can we manage this? So it's also for us complicated, but in the end it offers still nice opportunities. So I think this is something where the contact points and Salto can also work on to show how to make the budgets, how to use the right functions of the budget, for example in the flat rates and in the real costs, what goes where, and so on. So those are the two main things I think to this. And well, encourage the organizations to make projects with more activities than one, because well, as you have only one deadline, one project per deadline, it's nice to have also more projects that you can also plan on longer term, because in terms of capacity building, this is also a nice opportunity to really know, okay, what will I be doing in 1.5 years? There is this activity and so on. So it's very to really plan on a longer term, on a longer perspective. I think that's that's more or less the recommendations I would give.
Izvinjavamo, pošto jedno napomenu za organizatora što nema prevod na albanski. Ja sam Dževat Berami, direktor Ministarstva kulture, omladine i sporta Republike Kosove. Mi učestvujemo tu i ja sam čuo svako predstavnik koji je pričao ovdje. A mi kao vlada mnogo zainteresovano i drugi država koje sarađuju sa nama i mi veoma interesovani, izvidite, ja ne mogu baš dobro da pričam na crnogorski jezik. Jedno pitanje za vas. Jer može da ima prisustenje ako mi vlada podržavamo neke nezavisne organizacije za sarađuje na granicama, između granica države Kosove, Makedonije ili Srbija, Albanija i drugi. Mi spremamo kao vlada da podržavam to inicijative koje dolazi iz nezavisne organizacije i želimo da li to ima prisustuje od EU da podržava mi to projekte, da bude prioritet za to.
So yes, of course, we encourage all the participation of the local public authorities and government to be involved in the projects and to also co-fund projects. For example, there was a question on co-funding. you can co-fund such project, but you can also actively participate in the project. For example, an independent organization is the applicant of the project, and you can act as a partner. It must not necessarily be a partner to send participants and so on, but it can also be a partner on a local level in order to help to promote, in order to help to implement the local activities and so on. So yes, of course, this would be very much encouraged. As I said already earlier, it's very important to involve different stakeholders in the projects, which means organizations, but which means also the public authorities. So this is something we would like. This is very important in order to strengthen also the cooperation in the region, that the public sector is also interested in what the youth organizations are doing. So it will be very much encouraged that the public authorities participate in a very active way, sending participants, but also in a more passive way in just supporting the action and being there if there is some need or even technical issues where they can help to organize, for example, the local activities.
Hello everyone, I'm Katerina. I worked for 1 year for a contact point in Bosnia, but now I'm working more on the policy level projects in Federation of BIH. Erasmus is very known in the region, I would say, and in Bosnia in particular, but as a whole program. When it comes to the Western Balkan window in the youth field, I trust the fact that we have contact points in Salto working a lot, but on the track of co-funding, to get local or cantonal or whatever level of governance in my country to support the programs in kind, but also to give co-funding, it means that we really have to push, and having in mind that there is only one person from Bosnian authorities here, this also shows how they perceive the program itself, I would say. So this part of the program. So I'm wondering what executive agency can do with us to sort of more promote and push our authorities to realize the benefits of the program for young people, in particularly now in Bosnia. I'm talking about Bosnia and Herzegovina. So what can we do together? One of the things that also we discussed within the contact point, since I'm also helping them, is the fact that we should maybe have a project that is more on the capacity level building of these kind of institutions. And another question that Domagoj was asking us, raising, is also how many of them are actually having big numbers. It's also very interesting. How many of them are willing to participate in the program? Because in Bosnia you have so many level of governance and funded projects from the youth field. They expect some co-funding and some other support, but they're not very visible, and people from the contact point are trying to give this visibility as well, and Salto is supporting and so on. But I think my question is how we can jointly do something to raise this on the higher level.
I think the most important thing is, you already mentioned it, is to promote those projects who have been selected, who are implementing something, that they have as much visibility as possible, that you can see, that also the authorities can see, okay, there is something going on. I found it very nice today that, for example, the TV was coming here to make this is something you can do also with the local organizations, with the youth organizations. If they have some kind of event, you contact the local media, TV, that they come. If there is something, this is also something we always say to the organizations, if they have some bigger event, for example, conference and so on, don't hesitate to invite us, that we come. It's not sure that we can always come, but it's still an opportunity that, we are some colleagues, so maybe we can see that there is really an interest, and that we come, that you organize something on a bigger scale, that it's more visible afterwards. So those are all the small things that are not so complicated to put in place in order to get more visibility and to get the attention also from the authorities. Because I'm sure if, for example, one project is organizing a conference, if somebody from the European Commission is coming, suddenly they will, this is very interesting, so maybe we could also participate.
Or the delegation.
Or the delegations, yes, to work with the delegations on the spot.
I'll steal this for a moment. We are kind of getting towards the end of this session, just to see how many are still interested. So two hands, and then with this we will close this session, okay? So one is Jelena, and then Aida.
Thank you. Just a short question. My organization received granting that would end in October next year. Is it possible for us to apply in February again for the next period? So it's possible. It doesn't need to end the project.
No.
Just one project, one term, right?
You can apply for one project per deadline, and you can apply every deadline, even selected or not selected. You can run several projects. It's just one project per deadline where you can apply.
You release the new guidelines for next year, yes?
Yes.
I'm not very familiar with that, but can you tell us something more about annual priorities, if you changed anything in that part?
There is no, maybe Arthur, do you want to reply? There is no such annual priorities in the program guide. I would always suggest also to take the current context of the words when you write your applications. I mentioned earlier the refugee crisis. It's not a priority as such, but it's something, you know, when you see the current political context, that it would be interesting to see something like this in the projects. So it's, or terrorism, because it's a very good topic for the moment. So it's something. But there is no such annual priorities as we used to have in the Youth in Action program. So it's the program guide has been published a couple of weeks ago, and all documents linked to the application for the February deadline will be published beginning of December.
You want to? Just a second. Arthur, do you want to feed in with the priorities?
As Eva said, there are no use deadlines which would change dramatically from year to year. There is just broader policy priorities, like we mentioned before, youth participation, youth employability, and the closer you get with your project to these priorities, the higher are the chances probably that the project will be selected. And I think it's also important, these priorities are established to have a political impact. It's, they come from the fact that there are real needs, and to be concise and to really meet these priorities is important to achieve impact at European level. Because if we have priorities which go here and there, something will happen, but not enough.
Okay, so there is one more question. One, huh?
Maybe just to help about co-funding, because we have a very big experience. We got 7 projects in the last 2 years, and we use the soft marketing. So we put the city of the Solin like the sponsor, the logistical sponsor, then put the name, and after 2 projects we ask the money for the third one. It's very easy, they give us. So this is some way, and this is the big partnership what we have, strategic partnership. We apply for 155,000 euros and we get 120, so we was short for 35,000 euros, and we several level how find the money. So business level, so we contact some, because we make the tools, the games, interactive games for the youth tool, and we have some business level in each country who give us the money to put the name of the game. We have the donor actions, and we collect the private donations, like we make the cakes, sell the cakes, collect the money, and so on. So it's possible.
Okay, so thank you for this, and thanks everyone for taking active participation in this session. From what I heard, from what I've seen already, we have some recommendations here coming up, and also quite a few ideas on where to lead with these recommendations. Thank you, Eva, again for being with us. And I think with this now we have a lunch break starting in a few minutes in this room, or actually downstairs, in the downstairs room. So we will meet again at 3 o'clock. If you want to say something?
I want to say something.
Okay, so just final words from you.
Final words from me. Thank you very much for having invited me, organizers. And see Anna. But well, thank you. Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. And do not hesitate to send questions if you have regarding your application form to our general mailbox. And I wish you good luck for future applications and for projects implemented already.
Thank you.